Welcome to the Visual Storytelling Advanced Version webcast. We have all seen some really bad looking slides as we've been audience members, haven't we? Let me give you an example of what I call a bad slide. And when I bring this up, where do your eyes go? Maybe to some of the bolded words. I tend to gravitate towards that red bulleted item. This is all made up data, by the way. What if we could take something like this and make it more interactive, make it more engaging? And that's what we're going to be learning in this webcast. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. We could take the key areas from that last slide, the products, the shopping, and we could talk about the three different areas there of ordering and focus on that's the highlight of where we're going to take our audience. And then, and we're going to get into this is using the morph transition. We then focus on the products area and we show a list of all the products, and then we fade into a bulleted list of some of the key things that we would want to talk about. That's visual storytelling. David and I co-presented this same topic a couple months back, and we had so much requests for more. Not just to do a repeat, to do more. And so we're going to go deeper. If you want to go back and watch the recording of that first one, please feel free to do that. It's on the YouTube channel of iSpeak, and you can learn more about the basics of visual storytelling. And then today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. I'm excited to be co-presenting with David Ogden. My name is Kevin Karstick. David, we got a great webcast plan, don't we?
We sure do. I'm looking forward to sharing so many different things that we can do to tell those visual stories. There are just so many different paths that we can take, so many different tips and tools that we can use. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of you, wherever you're joining us from. You can see Kevin and I just posted our links to our LinkedIn pages in the chat panel. So if you would like to send us a request, we would be more than happy to link up with all of you via LinkedIn. Now, I just want to say welcome to everybody. As we were looking at the list of attendees, we saw many of our friends from several of our business partners, our customers. So I just want to say a special welcome to all of you that are joining us for this webinar. We have a lot of great things to cover with you, so I don't want to take too much time on that, but I do want to tell you that we're going to be engaging with you during this webinar. So please submit your questions, your comments, your feedback in the chat panel. I see that many of you are joining us, and I'm so glad that you're there. Put those questions, those comments in the chat panel, and Kevin and I will be responding to those throughout our time together. So make sure you're using that chat panel. You are not going to see it. It's just going to come to us, but we will respond to those either in a response in the chat panel, or we will respond to that during the webinar. Now, to get a little practice using the webinar or the chat panel, I just want you to ask everyone, where are you joining us from? Kevin and I like to have a little bit of competition to see where is the furthest place that somebody is joining us from. So I'm joining you from Katy, Texas, just outside of the Houston area. I see Kevin is typed in. He's joining us from Georgetown. Oh, Kevin, I think
Taylor in Lubbock, and we've got Chicago. Sadhana is in Chicago. Oh, we've got Italy represented.
Yeah, I saw Italy and beautiful White Plains, New York of Scott joining us. And then I see Rebecca, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. You'd like to acknowledge you're on Treaty 6.
Well, and it's funny, I'll bet Rebecca was thinking, oh, I got to be the furthest. I'm in Alberta, Canada, and not so, because we've got Italy represented here. Stacy, oh, hey, Stacy, our friend Stacy down in Houston, and Kara in Atlanta. I also have, now he hasn't chimed in yet, but I see my buddy Jesus down in San Antonio. So Jesus, I want to see you chime in. And then I see my good buddy Shannon Suber. I know she's up in the Dallas area.
And Kevin, I think we have a new winner for the furthest distance, and I see Nirmala joining us all the way from India. So welcome. It is a late night for you. Well, our agenda, the things that we're going to cover with you during our 1 hour webinar, we're going to start off and talk about storyboarding your slides, and then moving into mastering your master slides, slide titles, focusing on your audience, simplifying your slides, and then Kevin and I are just going to have some fun sharing some PowerPoint tips and tricks with you, those things that we are passionate about. So Kevin, why is storyboarding so important?
It's the starting place of creating our slides. David, you and I know how everybody creates their decks, right? They got a big presentation coming up next week. They open up an old deck. They do file save as, change that file name, and then they immediately go to the title slide. Let's change that title. Let's change that date. They go to slide sorter view. Anybody feeling like they can connect with what I'm saying? They go to slide sorter view. They delete a couple of those slides that they no longer need. Might even open up another old deck, grab a couple of those slides, copy and paste those in. And that's what I know a lot of you do with your presentation. You start there in that particular place. And we're going to say, let's not start with the slides. David and I think there are 3 key areas that make a great presentation. We got to have a great message. Let's make sure that we've got a great message. How many times have we seen presentations where we leave going, what was the point? What was the message of that presentation? I'm not sure what it is. So let's focus on having a great message first. Second, let's focus on delivering that great message. We cover this in some of our other webinars. We align our words, our voice, and our body language. And then that third area, we want to create some great slides. And that's what we're going to be focusing on here in this webinar. So we want to start with a great message, rehearse the delivery, and then create some of those great slides. So here's what that process looks like. Let's create that great message. And once we've got that great message, let's plan out what we want those slides to look like. So what I've got in my drawer is Post-it notes. And I know we covered this in our last webinar, but this is such an important topic that we wanted to make sure that we started with it today. And that I use these Post-it notes and I go offline and I practice and plan out what I want all of my slides to look like. So that when I get into PowerPoint, and we're going to show you a lot of those tips and tricks today, that I'm able to just quickly create those slides. Spend 30 minutes creating my slides, not 3 hours creating my slides. So that's what that looks like. And give you an example of this, I might take a list here. This is the outline of my presentation. I might plan that out. And again, I like to do offline, so we're doing a screenshot of what that might look like. But I'm going to put that into Post-it notes, plan out what every slide's going to look like, and then I'm going to go create those slides. David, what are your thoughts? How do you do it? I mean, for me, I'm offline because I get distracted when I go online. But what about you? What is your best practices for storyboarding?
You know, here in my home office, I have a closet door right next to me here, and I'm much like you. I like to go offline so I don't have those distractions. So I put those Post-it notes up on the door and I storyboard on the closet door. But I know some people, they don't want to use that paper. They don't have the space to storyboard out. So Kevin, do we have some other options that people can use when they don't want to use the Post-it notes and don't want to be a little bit more green?
Yeah, there's the software itself. I mean, using PowerPoint. I mean, one of the things that I've done is I've used the outline view in PowerPoint to type out what the headings of every slide would look like. Not creating the slides, but just outlining what those would look like, so that I now have that outline planned out. So I've used PowerPoint outline view for that. And I know there's some third-party software out there that folks can use as well.
Yeah, those are all great options, Kevin. So really, we're looking at just laying out our plan ahead of time so we can have focus in our slide design. Well, when we create our slides, and I know many times we are emailing out our slides. Have you ever had the situation where you go to email your slide deck and it's a fairly short slide deck, but the slide size is too large to be able to email? I know I've encountered that before.
For sure.
One of the things that happens when we have that happen is we have slide masters, especially if you've copied slides from another deck and pasted them into your slide deck. You will end up with having a bunch of different masters. So what I want to show you is how to look at all those masters and some of the things that we can do within the slide master to be able to help you out. So Kevin, if you would go ahead and jump to the next slide, this is how we get to the slide master. So you're going to go to view on the ribbon bar, and then you are going to click on slide master. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to walk you through that.
And David, I definitely have seen a lot of people who, when they're doing this, they see that there's confidential down there that gets overlapped. They struggle with the page numbers on their slides. So there's a lot of those features that people are struggling with. So I'm excited to see how you're going to walk us through this.
Yeah, there's several different things that we can do here. So now we are in Slide Master. You can see that off to the left-hand side is all of our slide masters. And as I scroll down, we have one slide master here, and I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom to show you how many slide masters we have in this particular deck. We have 7 different masters. So when I look at this, I can look down at the bottom of some of these masters, and I can look at the footers. So Kevin, to what you were talking about, when we look at a slide and we have that confidential, or sometimes in slide decks, I've even seen where it's been confidential 2 and 3 times on a slide. This is where you're going to be able to eliminate those redundant confidentials if you have that macro built into your slide. The other thing I've seen is down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that there's a slide number. Well, sometimes I've seen where in slide deck, somebody has had slide 3 of Y. Well, in the slide master is where you're going to be able to edit the total number of slides. So it actually shows, slide 3 of 25. But as far as file size goes, here's what's really helpful as far as the slide masters go. You can actually take your mouse and hover it over the masters, and it will tell you. So this particular master that I have my mouse on right now says it's used by no slides. But then when I move down to the next one, it says it's used by slides 16 and 17. So if I want to reduce my file size, what I can do is I can delete this particular slide master that's not used in my deck, and it's going to reduce that file size. So I can go and drastically reduce that file size, so it makes it easier to email, or it's just not taking up as much room on your hard drive. Being able to master the slide masters is something that is very valuable, but it's something that not a lot of people are aware of. So Kevin.
Yep, this was some good stuff right there. And it's like you said, the deleting of some of those unused masters going to free up a lot of that space. I think that's one of those things that people are going to benefit from. And the other things there that you were showing this was even just wanting to put a logo. Maybe there's a logo that you'd want to include on all of your slides. Instead of copying and pasting it onto literally every single slide, you could then add it to your master and it's on every slide automatically.
Absolutely, Kevin.
Yep.
Well, Kevin, why don't you tell us about some slide titles?
Yep, we're going to move on. And if you guys have any questions, always feel free to reach out to David and I. We're always glad to help you guys with any of these topics. Now, when we get to slide titles, we've talked about slide masters, some of the things that we can do with our slide masters. Next, the titles. We find that a lot of people have these generic titles on their screens, and we want to find some better titles, things that immediately grab the audience's attention. So we're going to have you guys interact with us here. Go to that chat window and just kind of, as best you can, take a quick look at the slide and say, what would be a good slide title for this? And again, we don't want it to be too generic because then people don't know what it is. I like to refer to this as the headline. What's the headline of what we're looking at? Most people go to the title first. David, I think, don't you call it the bluff?
I absolutely do. I call it the bluff. It's the bottom line up front.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, really, you want to think of it, the bluff, that bottom line up front is that heading, that the answer to what we're looking at here on this slide. So if you guys can, go to that chat window. Let's see some examples of some things that could be a good title for this slide. Waiting for some examples there. Now, as we sit there and we process what's here, somebody's wanting to buy a new car. They have good credit. They can get a better interest rate. They have bad credit. They're going to get a worse interest rate, and it's going to cost them a difference of $3,000. So credit rating and money savings was one of the example. Want to get away, another example. Scott said, need a vacation, looking for a new car. And so these are all examples of that. I mean, am I grabbing your attention? And is it setting me up for what I'm going to take away from this particular slide? So the example that we did, we actually did two things to this slide. We simplified it a little bit, because I'm going to go back to the original for just a second. There seemed like a lot going on. And so we simplified it where we kept the information down to the bare minimum. And then we changed the title to say, a poor credit score costs you more. So really having that impact on that title is going to be something that we're looking for. Let's do another one here as we look at, again, a long list of some things that are happening here. Read it quickly, kind of look through all that. What would make a good title for this slide? Let's go back to that chat window again, give some ideas here. And again, it's that bluff that David talked about, that bottom line up front, the headline, that this is where we as audience members look. Our eyes tend to go to the title first, and it should tell us what we're about to see, what we're about to hear. Drowning in debt. I like that. Taylor had mentioned that as a title. What are some other options here? And again, what we're going to show you in the revised version is we're going to simplify it, because there's a lot going on here with a lot of text, and we're going to simplify the text. And the title that David and I talked about was putting the 4 keys to a successful budget. Now, maybe a little cheesy, depends on your audience, where we put the little keys next to each of those instead of bullets. But if you have the right audience, I feel like it could fit the topic. If I were presenting up to executives, probably wouldn't go that path. But if I were presenting this out to folks who are learning about how to budget, maybe a budgeting 101 type workshop, I think it fits. And having that big pile of cash at the bottom's really got that pop. And so I think simplifying the slide, putting that effective title on the top are some of those things that we want to think about. So in this webcast, we're talking about slide masters. We've talked about slide titles. And next, we're going to talk about how to focus the audience. Now, David, I'm going to have you share your screen again here as we talk about this. We're going to think about focusing our audience in different areas. Or David, you want me to do this or you want to do this? I guess we can go either way.
No, I'll go ahead and share.
Okay, so David, when we look at a busy slide like this, our eyes go everywhere, and I'm not sure where to look. So show me how to do this. We're gonna talk about how to focus the audience using transparent objects, and I'm gonna have you draw a transparent shape on the screen, and then, or draw a shape on the screen, and then make it transparent, and then we're gonna go back to the presentation mode to show folks how this could look as we present this data. So we start big, focus them on a part of the screen, and then we zoom into that part of the screen. So walk us through how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. So what the first thing we're going to do is we are going to insert a shape, and any shape that you want to. For this case, I'll just draw an oval here, and we're trying to draw our audience's attention to that bottom right-hand corner. Now you can see that I've created that transparent, or that icon, but we can't see through it. So now what we need to do is make it transparent. And there's multiple different ways to do things in PowerPoint. My preferred method is I right click on it, I go to my fill, and then I can go to more options there. Another thing that you can do is, when you click on that icon, you can go to shape format up at the top, and you can change it from there. So Kevin, what is your preferred method of making the transparency for after you create the shape? So I know what I like to do is I like to right click on it, go to a format shape, and then now I have these options over here on the right hand side. And the reason that I like doing this is now I actually have a bar on the transparency that I can drag, and I'm not having to type a number. I can just make it as transparent as I want to. So can change the color. I can change the transparency. I just have a lot of different options there. And then when I go into my slide deck, again, there's multiple ways to do this. You can do it with an animation. My preferred method actually is to just duplicate the slide. And then what I have, and I can get rid of the transparent box on the first slide. I start off when I show my slide is now what I have is, I need to change my share. My apologies, guys. Now what I have is I start off with my slide, and then as I switch to my next slide, then that transparent box shows up and it draws my eyes to that. And then from there, what I can do is take an even deeper dive into that content by creating a slide that has that detailed information on it. Another scenario that we can use the transparent boxes is when we have the quarterly business review slides. And I know that we have these QBR type slides from time to time. One of the things we can do to help us move through this is, again, using transparent boxes, but rather than using the transparent box to draw our eyes to something, we use the transparent boxes in this scenario to be able to let the audience know that the area that we are talking about. So when I do this, again, I'm going to go to Insert Shapes, and in this case, I'm going to do a square or a rectangle, and I am going to cover with a shape this box. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a white transparency, and I'm going to hide that. And for these, I like to go about 20 to 30% for this. So there, and now what I can do is insert another shape. And now I'm going to create a shape over this area of the slide. So now what I'm doing is I am creating the focus to the performance section of this slide. So all of these are very handy things that we can do to be able to draw our audience's eyes and give focus to the different areas that we're talking about. And then I just duplicate this slide and I move the transparent boxes around. So then as I'm moving around my slide deck, it brings that focus to the areas that I'm talking about. Now, Kevin, I know there's another thing that we can do with these QBR type of slides. Can you tell us a little bit about slide zooms?
Yeah, David, this is great stuff. I mean, I just put it in the chat window. I use the transparency in every presentation that I deliver. I don't think there's a single presentation where at some point I'm not using a transparent box to do what you just showed, either to highlight something and then drill into it like you did with that really busy slide, or here in the QBR to cover stuff up that I don't want the audience to focus on. So I think that's really effective and really useful in places where we're feeling, I'm going to say handcuffed. My boss told me I have to use this one slide and it's really busy and I know it's not the best way to design a slide, but using the transparent boxes, I can focus the audience on certain places. So I think that's great. The other thing that we can do is inside of PowerPoint, there's a feature called Zoom. Now, not to be confused with the platform that we're using right now, the Zoom platform for delivering a presentation. This is the Zoom feature. And I'm going to show you here on this slide, I've got the QBR highlighted. And I'm going to delete out one of the sections here. I'm going to take this key drivers section and I'm going to delete it out. And I'm going to show you another way that we're going to do this. We're going to, instead of covering everything up, I'm going to zoom into it. And we're going to see how this works. I'm going to go to Insert on my menu bar. And I'm going to go over here to where it says Zoom. And it's asking me, what do I want to zoom? We're going to zoom into another slide. Now, in order to do this, the other slide has to exist. So I'm going to go to Zoom Slide. And it's going to bring up the entire deck. So these are all the slides that we have shown you guys so far. Let me scroll down, find the slide here, slide number 29 is the blown up version of that one section called key drivers. I'm going to select it and I'm going to hit insert. What that's going to do is put a thumbnail on the screen. All I got to do at this point is drag that thumbnail, position it into the place that I want it. I'm going to stretch it here to get it to fit into that section. And that section is now zoomed. I'll show you how it looks here in just a second. One thing I've got to do to make sure that it works and functions the way I want it, I've got it selected. I'm going to go to zoom on my menu bar. That shows up because that is now a zoomed item. I'm going to go to zoom on the menu bar, and I'm going to click this little checkbox here that says return to zoom. You're going to see what that does here in 1 second when I run my presentation. So I'm going to put us into presentation mode, and we're going to see what this is going to look like. I'm going to reshare my screen so we can get to that slide. And what I'm going to get to do now is when I hover over this area of key drivers, you're going to see my mouse turns into a pointer, because when I click on it, it's going to zoom into that slide, the key driver slide. Once I've zoomed into it, when I'm done, I simply click on the screen and it will zoom back. Oops, it'll zoom back to the menu, if you will. And so, David, I love these couple of options that we're showing them, how to block everything out using the transparent boxes, and then how to incorporate the zoom technique to zoom into an area on a slide. And I think the zoom works great on a slide like this, where we've got some very well-defined areas that we can zoom into. And so those are some of those things.
Kevin, I really like the zoom feature, and I put this in the chat panel. But if you've ever used Prezi, or if you've ever seen Prezi used, the slide zoom feature gives PowerPoint a very Prezi look and feel. It takes that PowerPoint to the next level. That's why I really like it.
Yep. No doubt. And so let's keep going here as we get into the next topic, as we've still got a lot to go into and a lot of examples to show everybody. The next topic is simplifying. So we do want to simplify. I don't love some of those slides, and I'm going to go back to 2 of them here. I don't love this really busy slide that we looked at earlier. Not one that I would want to present, but I love how you showed us how we could focus folks. I don't love this really busy QBR slide, but I love, again, how we use the transparent boxes to keep the audience on the area that we want them to be looking at. If I had the choice, I'd love to be able to go back and simplify those slides. And if we took a really busy slide, and we're going to look at what I call a wall of text, it's got bullets here, it's got sub bullets, it's just kind of blah. And if we looked at a couple of different ways to do this, I'm going to say option 1 would be to create a bulleted list and put a picture. It's better. It's the least favorite of all of the options that we have here. But there's so many other things that we can do. David, what else could we do with this? So we're going to take this. I'm going to go back. It's the busy slide. Version 1, we simplify it with bullets and a picture. Better. But what else could we do with this?
Kevin, we have lots of different options. And one of my favorite options to do is to convert to SmartArt. And we can take that text heavy slide, right click or highlight the text, right click on it, and we can convert it to SmartArt. We have a lot of different options that we can use in that scenario, but that's not the only option that we have. We have options where.
Well, David, I like that. Let's show them. You brought up the example. Let me talk about it. Let's do it so they can see, because we can take that slide and I can come over here and I can highlight the text like you just said, right click on it and go to this option right here that says convert to SmartArt. And so in a very simple 2 seconds, I can redesign that slide. I'm going to go to this arrow box right here, and I'm going to need to move this picture out of the way to do this. So I just turned those bulleted lists into SmartArt. And if I don't like that particular option of SmartArt, I can go up here to my menu and I can choose from any of the other layouts, and in a single click, redesign those slides. So anything that I'm looking for, I can just find. Look how easy that is. One of my favorites here is this option here with this curved vertical list. And by doing that, shrinking this down, bringing this picture back in no time at all, we can really take that generic bulleted list and make it pop. And so what do you think, David? What do you think of that?
I'm loving that. And that takes something that is text heavy and makes it visually appealing. Now, Kevin, what are some other ways that we can make a slide like this more visually appealing? What do you like to do?
Yeah, I want to do one thing before we move on, because I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts of this guy looking away from the bulleted list?
I think there's a very simple solution to that. And when he's looking away, it looks like he's disengaged. So one very simple option that we can do is we can just reverse that image.
Yep.
And we can take him from looking away from the slide to now looking into the center of the slide. And it takes it from that disengagement feel to feeling engaged.
So I'm going to click on the picture. I'm going to go to picture format on the menu. And I'm going to come over here and hover over the option called rotate objects. And all I'm going to do is flip it horizontally. Let me kind of go off of that and see. So this is where it was. All I got to do is flip it horizontally. And he's now looking at the bulleted list. And I think it changes the impact of the slide. So I like what we've done there. I think that was really cool. And we've shown him some really cool things that we can do. So back to your point, we start with this boring bulleted list. We've made the simple bulleted list better by using smart art and flipping that picture around. I think that looks fabulous. The other thing we could do is incorporate some images or some pictures. And instead of using the vertical bulleted list, which we see in so many presentations, we're going to go across the screen horizontally and we're going to use pictures. I think this has got a really nice pop to it. But there's also some, I'm going to say some warnings here. David, what are some things that we want to be careful of when we're using pictures?
Anytime that we are using pictures, you absolutely want to make sure that you are not using copyrighted materials.
Yep.
Anytime that you're using any type of graphics, even if it's for an internal presentation, you do not want to use anything that's copyrighted, that you do not have the license for, because you can get yourself into big trouble with that.
No doubt. And I use Google a lot. I'm sure a lot of people do, but there's a little trick in Google. Explain it. How can I use the Google advanced image search to my advantage?
So yeah, in Google, you can search for something, and you can click on images, and then over on the right hand side you can click on advanced image search, and then when that comes up you can go down to the bottom of that advanced image search, and you can choose between what type of licenses you want to filter your search for. So you can make sure that the images that you are using are appropriate, and you're not going to get yourself in trouble. So it uses some terminology here. Kevin, do you want to help us define the terminology so we make sure that we're picking the right type of images?
Yeah, when you go down there and you've got all, now that's going to be everything. That's going to be copyrighted images as well as the free to use images. And those are the ones I can't distinguish them by just looking. What I can tell you is that when you look at them and you see something really cool, it's probably copyrighted. When you go down and you select Creative Commons license versus commercial and others, you're going to see it filter out the copyrighted images, and you're going to be able to use the images that are going to be safe, the ones that are free shares and public domain pictures. And they're not going to look as nice, but you're going to know that you're going to be using safe images. So we've got, let's go back to our busy slide, David. We've got our busy bulleted list. We've simplified it with some just bullets. We turned it into smart art, flipped our picture around. We looked at using pictures instead of bullets. I love that. And then there's some other options here. And this one, we build it from scratch. Now we could use smart art like you showed us here earlier, or we can just draw these objects, and they're easy to do. You're drawing a rounded rectangle and you're typing the text in, and we're going to use the icons. And David, there's lots of places to get the icons here. Now, these are not pictures, they're icons. What are two sources for icons for us?
Well, First of all, Microsoft over the last few years has done a great job of building up their list of icons that we can use. So in that insert area, you see icons as an option, and you can even search by types. So that is a great resource, and they've definitely grown that list, and it's growing all the time. But if you run out of, yeah, so Kevin, you're showing that to us. Thank you. If you run out of options, another resource that I want to share with you is the Noun Project. And you can sign up for a free account. And I just want to show this to you real quick. This is a great resource that you can go to. And there are over 2 million different icons that you can do. So you can just search for something like travel, and we're all missing travel right now, and you can bring up icons that are all related to travel, and you can scroll through and pick the types of icons that you want to, and they even have collections that you can go to, so all of your icons have the same look and feel to them. So those are two great resources that you have to be able to insert those icons into your slide decks.
Yep, I love that. Yeah, two different ways. And one of the things that I've always struggled with the icons is trying to be consistent, that they look like they're from the same family, and sometimes they don't. And so by using the icons within PowerPoint, so insert icons, or using here the Noun Project, I love the fact that there's over 2 million. I can make the icons that we're using look like they're from the same family. And that's like in that example here that we were just looking at, and I'm going to go back to it so we can kind of show the audience. But this particular screen, they all look like they go together, the icons here, the phone support, the free delivery, the web solutions, and the award-winning. They all look like they're from the same family. They're not just a hodgepodge of pictures and icons, but this slide now has a very, very professional look to it. David, I hope the folks are pulling their pens out and they're taking a ton of notes, because I know we're sharing a ton with them. We're going to continue to go through some more PowerPoint tips, and we've got a bunch here in our last 20 minutes to leave them with. One thing that I struggle with the pictures, and I want your help on this, is sometimes I bring a picture in, and I'm going to give you an example here on the screen, and David, help me with it. In this particular example, I brought in the visual storytelling logo, and it was a lot of white space around it, and I wanted to put it on top of this diagram, and doesn't have the same look I would want. So there's two things I'd like you to walk us through. Show me how to crop this, because that's something that I think we can use in all our presentations. And then show me how to get rid of that white background and making it transparent. You showed us how to make transparent shapes earlier. Show me how to make that picture transparent.
So it's a very cool tool that we can use. So the first thing that I want to show is, how can we just minimize the amount of white space that we have on the screen. So the first thing we can do is we can just simply crop it down and just get rid of a bunch of the white space. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to right click on the image. I'm going to go to crop, and now I can reduce down the amount of white space that is in this image. And when I get it to where I like, then I can just go ahead and click on that, and now I've drastically reduced the amount of white space that is there.
Perfect. I love that. Yep, I love that.
Another thing that we can do, and I'm actually just going to insert a different picture here. So I'm going to insert a picture. We'll just go to a stock image here, and what I want to do is find a image to insert that's going to go on this screen, but I want to remove the background for it. So, maybe we want to insert a bird into this image, but all we want is the bird in this image. So what I can do is I can make sure I click on this image. I'm going to go up here to picture format. So when I click on this image, this picture format is going to appear on the ribbon bar. Now, when I click on this, I can go to remove background. And now PowerPoint actually does a pretty good job with some images. Other images, it might be a little bit more of a challenge. but it's going to automatically determine what to keep and what to get rid of. Right now, it's already done a pretty good job of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to click changes. And now I've removed the background on that bird. So I now have an image that is sitting on top of that, and I've gotten rid of all of the background to it.
I love that. I think that is very, very useful in our presentations. Do you want to just, I've done that before too, and just we want to tell the folks, it doesn't work on every picture, that sometimes there's a background where that background isn't very distinguishable and PowerPoint can't decide what is the background and what's part of the picture. What you did there worked pretty well, and then there's other times it doesn't work.
Yeah, so you have to play with it, and sometimes you will get in and you have to do a lot of clicking to be able to keep or remove what you want to do. The bird was a pretty easy example there. So Kevin, why don't you tell us about aligning objects on a slide?
Well, I want to go back really quick before we do that. I want to go back, and I just want to take that logo that we were looking at, and I want to make it transparent. So I want to take that logo. Let's go to it, and we're going to make it transparent. David, can you just grab that and do that? Can you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do here is, again, in PowerPoint, multiple ways to do something. But what we're going to do is make sure that we click on the icon. We are going to right click on it. And then what we can do is we can go to Format Picture again. And then we can go to Picture Transparency. And we have multiple options here. We can drag it and change that transparency. We can type in the transparency. So we have lots of different options as far as how we're going to do that. So we'll take it to about roughly 50% transparency and see if we like it. So Kevin, what do you think about that?
Yep, it works. It works for me as well. Now that's taking the whole image and making it transparent. Let's do this. I want to do one more thing with them, and I'm going to go and I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to take that image again. I'm going to grab it. We're going to take that whole image. I'm going to go up to picture format. So we're going to show them one more way here. And I'm going to go over here to where it says color. And I'm going to go down here to where it says set transparent color. And I'm going to click on that white background. And that's only going to remove the white background and not the actual logo. So now we've got that logo sitting on top of that background. So all of these different options, David, we've shown them a whole bunch of different things. Again, that's why I said, I hope they were taking their pens out and taking a lot of notes as we were doing this. Let's keep moving. We got a few more things to do here in 15 minutes. I want to talk about aligning objects on the screen. And what I'm going to do here, and we've all struggled with this. We've seen the different things that we can do with the alignments. And I don't know if people have struggled with this, but I know I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some objects on the screen, and we're going to go to Insert, Shapes, and I'm going to draw a circle. Now, it says oval. And as I try to draw a perfect circle, if we've ever struggled with that, and I'm trying to draw a perfect circle, here's the trick. Or David, what is the trick? How do I make that perfect?
So you can use Control, if you hold your Control button down, and you can make it a perfect shape.
Yep, Control anchors it on the opposite side, and the Shift key makes sure that it's perfect. So that Shift key to anchor it, to make it perfect, the Control key to anchor it on the opposite side. So I've now got that circle there. I'm going to draw another circle. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to duplicate that circle. So I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. I've now got 2 of these. I'm going to hit Control D and duplicate another one. I've got 3 of these. And I want to align them perfectly onto the screen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to select all 3 of them. I'm going to go to Shape Format on the menu, and I'm going to go to the Align menu. Now, this is somewhat of a confusing menu, and so let's break it down. At the very bottom, all of these options are going to work and function based on the checkbox. Are they going to align to each other, the align selected objects, or are they going to be aligned to the slide? And so I'm going to choose the checkbox align to slide. Now that doesn't do anything. People think it's going to align them to the slide. It doesn't. When I click there and I go back to the menu, all it does is readjust the way these top features function. And so what I'm going to do now that I'm going to align the slide is I'm going to say move them all to the middle. So they're all moved to the middle of the slide perfectly. Go back to the align menu and I'm going to say let's distribute them horizontally. And when I click on distribute horizontally, you'll see a slight shift. They're now perfectly centered on that screen. Now, let's say I go back and I have to add another one. So I've got 4 of these, and I'm going to need to make them slightly smaller for this to work. I've got 4 of these, and I want to do the same thing, and they're all scrambled up. So how do I get these all to align? I'm going to select all of them, go to shape format, go to align. I've got my align to slide already set. I'm going to align to the middle. I go back and I say distribute horizontally. And now those 4 shapes are perfectly distributed across the slide. And those are some of the things that we will find very, very helpful when we're trying to do this. I'm sure folks are going to find that helpful. Go to that chat window. Let us know if this is a helpful tip or any of the others that you've seen so far are helpful, because the next thing we're going to do is turn those objects into a picture. And David would love for you to show us how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, now that we've created those shapes, we have a couple of different options to make those shapes much more dynamic. So what I want to do is show you how we can turn objects into a picture. Well, first, we have a picture here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it a shape. So if we click on the picture, we've gone back to picture format again. And then when we come over here to the right-hand side, click on crop, we can crop that to a shape. So now I'm going to come over and make that an oval shape, and it's going to leave it roughly the size that it is. And now I've just converted that picture now to a circle. Now, if we already have the circle created, what we can do is we can take an image, we can copy that image, and then what we're going to do is go to shape format. And now what we want to do is go to our fill, and we want to do a picture fill. And since we copied that image already, now we can just take it from the clipboard and insert it into that circle. So then now we can do the same exact thing with this. So I'm going to right click on this lady, copy her, and now click on this object. And now I want to do a picture fill. Go to the clipboard, and now I've done 3 different objects, turning them into a picture. So again, multiple different ways to do something in PowerPoint, but this can create our pictures or our icon, or sorry, our shapes into something that's much more dynamic and visually appealing.
That's exactly what I was thinking, was just, it's got that visual appeal. I mean, that pop that sometimes that we're looking for on slides. And because so many of the pictures that we find are squares, when you're able to convert it into something like you've shown us here in circles, it just has a different look to it or a different feel to it. So David, I think that's awesome. I'm going to be using more of that in my future presentations.
Absolutely, Kevin. These are all great tips. So, Kevin, I want to ask you, what else do we have?
Well, we're going to talk about morph and next, and this is one of my favorite things inside of PowerPoint, and it's brand new as of January 2019. So it's been around for about 1.5 years. It's a new transition as we go from one slide to the next. Now, what I want to show you is how we've used it already in our slides. And I'm going back to the ask questions in the chat window. This was the slide we saw, and we implemented the morph transition as it went from this slide to this slide. What did it do? It took the big live chat icon, shrunk it down, and you guys saw it shrink, and then it put it into another window. I've used this to go from one slide to other slides in many different places. And so I want to show you a couple of them here in terms of how I would use this in a presentation. And I just absolutely love morph. Let me show you an example of one that we did and how we're going to fix it. So this was an example here where we were talking about the 3 different areas of a presentation, how to prepare, develop, and deliver. And we said that if you use speaker notes, that you could put the speaker notes in the bottom of the slide, so they're not going to be presented. But then when you go to print your slides, you could print with speaker notes. Now watch this. This is not Morph, and we're going to go back and I'm going to walk you through the steps. We go from this slide to the next slide. Let me go back here. So here's the slide, and said you can now print with speaker notes. As I go to the next slide, it just goes to the next slide. Nothing fancy happens. When I saw this, I was like, ooh, here's an opportunity for Morph. And so what I'm going to show you is we're going to walk you through how to do this in using Morph. So simple to do. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take the object. Now, for something to morph in PowerPoint, PowerPoint has to be able to recognize it. Has to be the same picture or the same object or the same text box. Doesn't have to be the same text, but the same text box. Has to be the same object. So I'm going to select this picture from this slide. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to paste it. Now, when I paste it, it's going to come in really big. What I'm going to do is shrink it down, and I'm literally just going to put it right on top of the other one that was on the screenshot there. And the audience doesn't know any difference when they see this, when it presents itself. But when I morph it, you're going to see it shrink. Here's how I morph it. So now I've copied the exact same image over. I'm going to go to transitions on my menu bar, and I'm going to say I want to morph from the previous slide to this slide, which is going to create that shrinking look. So I'm going to go back, and we're going to now, let me go back, and we're going to share this from the beginning. Let me share it in a screen share view. This was that slide now. Now, because we've added the morph and I've copied that image over, when I click, it shrinks down into that printed page and adds that simple dynamic. I like this. I don't feel like it's over the top. I even think for an executive audience, it doesn't feel too much. Executives don't like things flying in. They don't like things bouncing in. But when we do something simple like morph, this is something that we can use. So I really love this morph feature. And you can use it with anything. I'll do one more example here with you guys, and then we're going to be talking next about the eyedropper, and David's got some great examples for us on that. So let me walk you through one more example with this. I'm going to delete all of what we've done so far, and we're just going to start over. And what I'm going to do very, very simply is I'm going to insert a shape, and I'm going to draw that circle. Again, holding down that shift key, I'm going to draw a circle on the screen. That's all it's going to be, simple circle. I'm going to take that circle, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to make that circle take up the whole screen. I'm going to make it bigger. That's all I've done. So let me go to slide sorter view. Slide 42, it's small circle. Slide 43, big circle. On slide 43, I'm going to go to transitions, click on morph. And then when I run this, and we're going to go to PowerPoint mode now, it's going to look like that small circle is going to grow into a big circle because PowerPoint is morphing the small circle into that big circle. So again, love incorporating the morph feature into my presentation. So many different things that we can do. David, we're kind of hitting the edge at a time here, but you've got a great one that we're going to wrap up on, and it's called the eyedropper. And I struggle with this when I'm trying to get colors to match, especially logos. Help me with this. How can we use the eyedropper and use the colors more effectively in our presentations?
Yeah, the eyedropper is a tool that I really love, especially when we're talking about trying to brand our slides so they have the look and feel of the companies that we are working for or we are working with. So one of the great things that we can do is we can take an object and we can right click on the object. We can go to fill, come down to the eyedropper, and now anywhere that we move on the screen, we can pick up a color from something that is on that screen. So if I wanted to grab the orange of the iSpeak eye, I can now make that icon a that same orange. Or maybe I wanted to pull a color from this guy's shirt. I could do the same thing. I could go to fill, eyedropper, and now I could find these different colors from his shirt and make that part of my presentation. I can do that with objects. I can do that with text. So I can change my font color and come over to the eyedropper. Maybe I want the text to be the iSpeak blue. Or so I can do a lot of different things in transitioning my colors to make sure that they have a look and feel that is branded for either what I have on that slide or the company logos that we work for, or for our customers that we are working with. The last quick thing that I want to share with everybody, I started off today talking about how large files and how we can be surprised with the file size of PowerPoint. Another thing that happens with PowerPoint is we have images that are very high quality images, and they take up a lot of file size. And if we don't need that image quality in our slide deck, something very simple we can do, we can click on that image, we can we can click on the image, we can go to picture format, and then over on the left-hand side, you're going to see compressed pictures. When we do that, we can choose what quality or what resolution we want for those images. So we're going to say we want this to be print quality. And then we can delete any cropped areas of the photos, and we can choose whether we want to apply these settings to just this photo or to all images in our slide deck. And when we do that, that is something that is extremely helpful in our file size. So another way that we can really help with reducing the file sizes. Now, Kevin, I want to ask you, what's next?
What's next is the next webinars and the next classes and the group connecting with us in all of those different places that we are on the social areas, the Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even subscribing to our YouTube channel. We've got so many different options, and we've got so many great classes. David, what's one of your favorites?
My favorite right now is tools for influencing. How do we gain alignment with our teams, whether we're in a formal leadership role or an informal leadership role?
So the workshop all day, it's 7 hours in person. We do have a few of those scheduled right now. And the virtual version, where we break that up into 2 4-hour virtual sessions, we're able to take any of our full day classes and deliver it virtually. If this is something you're interested in, Dara Kukla, our account representative, will help you with that. And also, if you want a copy of our slides today, we've got that available to you. We're going to email that out along with a recording of this webinar, and you'll be able to go back, watch it, share it with friends, and use the slides view that we are going to share with you to go back and reference all the stuff that we've talked about. So David, I thought this was great. I thought we had a fun hour and it flew by. I want to say thanks to everybody. David, thanks to you. This was great.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And in the chat panel, I just put the link to our YouTube channel where all of these webinars are being posted. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.